The airplane aisle was crowded with the shuffle of passengers finding their seats, the quiet murmur of voices blending with the steady hum of the engines. A woman in a crisp white blazer, her sunglasses still perched proudly on her nose, marched down the aisle with a kind of confidence that demanded space. She stopped abruptly when she reached row 3, staring down at a tall black man seated comfortably by the window. Her lips curled into a sharp line as she spoke, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Excuse me, sir. You're in my seat." The man looked up slowly, his eyes calm, steady, unbothered by her sharp tone. He held her gaze for a beat longer than most would dare, and then, with a voice as smooth as velvet, said, "This is my seat. Check your ticket again." Instantly, the tension in the air thickened, and every nearby passenger pretended not to watch while secretly holding their breath. Would she back down? Or would the story unfold into something no one on that plane would ever forget? She scoffed, flicking her blonde hair off her shoulder, and waved her boarding pass like a weapon. "3A, she snapped. "Window seat. That's mine. You need to move." Her words carried the sting of entitlement, and though she didn't say the rest out loud, her body language whispered it. "People like you don't belong up here." The man studied her for a moment, his face revealing nothing, before pulling his own boarding pass from the seat pocket and laying it flat on the tray table. It read the same, 3A. For a moment, the woman's confidence faltered, but she quickly regained her posture. "Well," she huffed, "clearly there's been a mistake. I'll have the flight attendant sort it out." She pressed the call button with exaggerated force, as if the whole plane needed to see her authority in action. Passengers shifted, uncomfortably, some exchanging glances, some staring at their phones to avoid the growing storm. But all of them were listening. The flight attendant arrived, her smile professional but strained, sensing the weight of what she'd walked into. She checked both tickets, her eyes flicking back and forth before she finally looked at the woman with careful diplomacy. "Ma'am, both tickets are valid. It looks like the system double-booked the seat. I'll need to check with the captain to see how we can resolve this." The woman rolled her eyes, muttering something about incompetence, then crossed her arms with the posture of someone who was used to winning. The black man remained composed, his silence more powerful than any words he could have spoken. Passengers leaned in closer now, their curiosity growing. Who was he? Why wasn't he fighting back? Why did he look like he knew something the rest of them didn't? The woman's impatience grew, her voice rising. "This is first class. I paid good money for this seat. You can't just let anyone sit here." The words "anyone" hung heavy in the air, unspoken but understood by everyone who heard them. A flicker of discomfort moved across the attendant's face, but the man only smiled faintly, almost as if he'd been here before. He leaned back, adjusted his suit jacket, and said softly, "You might want to be careful with your words. This flight has a way of humbling people." It wasn't a threat, not even close. It was more like a quiet prophecy, and something about it sent a ripple of unease through her. Still, she didn't back down. Minutes later, the captain himself arrived, clipboard in hand. He looked at the man first, nodding respectfully, then at the woman, and finally at the tickets. "It seems there's been a clerical error," he said. "But don't worry. We'll make sure this gets resolved fairly." The woman leaned forward with relief, already imagining the outcome. But then the captain added, "Mr. Daniels, your seat is guaranteed. Always. Ma'am, we'll need to reassign you." Confusion twisted her features. "Guaranteed? What does that mean? Why does he get special treatment?" she demanded. The captain hesitated, glancing briefly at Mr. Daniels, who gave a small nod, granting silent permission. The captain cleared his throat. "Because he's the owner of this airline." The words landed like thunder, stunning the cabin into absolute silence. The woman's mouth fell open, her face flushing red as realization sank in. Every ounce of superiority she had flaunted evaporated in an instant. The same man she had dismissed, mocked, and tried to push aside was the very reason this airplane even existed. She stammered, You own?" Her voice trailed off, her arrogance unraveling thread by thread. Mr. Daniels leaned forward, his voice calm but laced with the weight of truth. "Yes, I own this airline. And yet, here you are, trying to strip me of a seat I've earned 1,000 times over." His words weren't shouted, but they cut sharper than any raised voice ever could. The cabin seemed to shrink around her, all eyes pinned on her, waiting for her next move. Her bravado crumbled. She muttered something that was supposed to be an apology, but it lacked sincerity, sounding more like desperation than remorse. Mr. Daniels studied her, his expression unreadable. Finally, he said, "An apology isn't about saving face. It's about seeing the person you tried to diminish. Do you see me now?" The question hung in the air, raw and unflinching. For the first time, she really looked at him, not at his skin, not at his seat, but at the man himself. She nodded, unable to find words. Mr. Daniels leaned back again, closing his eyes as though the matter were settled. The flight attendant gently guided the woman to another seat, her posture now small, her confidence deflated as the plane taxied down the runway. Whispers rippled quietly through the cabin. Passengers exchanged knowing glances, some smiling too. Themselves, others shaking their heads at what they had just witnessed. The woman sat rigid in her new seat, replaying the humiliation over and over in her mind. But across the aisle, Mr. Daniels remained serene, his composure unbroken, his dignity untouched. He had nothing to prove, and that was the greatest power of all. The moment wasn't about revenge or public shaming. It was about truth revealing itself in its own time. Hours later, when the plane touched down, the woman lingered, waiting for the chance to approach him. Her voice was quieter now, stripped of arrogance. "Mr. Daniels," she began, "I was wrong. I shouldn't have spoken to you like that. I let my pride get the better of me." For the first time, he turned fully toward her, his eyes warm, but steady. "It's not pride that got the better of you," he said. "It was blindness. Don't let it happen again." There was no anger in his voice, only a quiet wisdom that cut deeper than shame. She nodded, a single tear slipping down her cheek. And in that moment, she wasn't a woman in first class. And he wasn't just the CEO. They were two human beings, one learning the cost of arrogance, the other reminding the world what grace looks like. As he walked off the plane, a hush followed him, a silent acknowledgement of the lesson everyone had just witnessed. Some stories are told with words, some with actions, and some, like this one, with the kind of dignity that lingers long after the flight has landed. And somewhere deep inside, that woman knew she would never look at another stranger the same way again.